What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, the podcast, episode 160, whatever we're on. We have a guest, a second time appearer.
Returning guest.
Returning guest. It's Thuuuuney with 4 U's, volume 2. What is going on, my friend?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I am doing swell. Not even great. Swell. Thank you for being here.
We talked about it before you hit record, but the setup has changed for both of us. I mean, is that a transformer you got up at the top of the shelf over there?
That's my Power Ranger wall all back here. So
okay.
It's all themed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Cool.
Yeah, the glow up has happened. I love your setup is such a cool, like, tight Minnesota.
Yeah, so I've been adapting on how to set it up because I've probably had in my streaming career now, I think this is my 4th setup, I think. So I basically wedged my desk into my new apartment into a corner, and I was like, okay, we're just gonna jam everything in this corner, and it's kind of like not taking direct inspirations, doesn't look anything like Pat McAfee has, but I like how Pat McAfee's setup is like cluttered.
Yes,
but it's cool.
Yes, it's like organized sports clutter.
It's like organized sports chaos. It's cool because like that setup is showing one that they have a lot of hardware, like they've been and done a lot of things, and then they also have cool stuff too. And now the sun is blaring me in the face, so I'll look really bright here.
they say the smartest people are cluttered and disorganized, so there you go.
Well, it's because we're thinking of other stuff, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Your mind's racing all the time.
Yeah.
So our boy Thuuuuney is back. We're happy he's back. We're going to be talking a lot about the state of esports, talk about the Sunburst Invitational. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So this is coming out and being published well after the fact of the Sunburst Invitational. Yeah, that's fine. Just so we're here for transparency at all times. So we're recording this on September 28th. You guys are not actually seeing this until right after what is it? The 13th, I think, is the day I'm thinking of October. We do this
live.
That's
a solid turnaround.
The 10th.
That's a solid turnaround.
I usually record these. I record these and pop them out the next week. So this is one of the rare times we're holding an episode because I have a wedding to go to. But
there you go.
We're not going to be talking about anything like current events in MLB The Show in this episode, but that's okay. You guys will still enjoy it. The Sunburst Invitational is such a cool topic to talk about for a lot of reasons. It was a historic event.
Yeah, it was.
For a lot of reasons. And one of the voices was Mr. Thuuuuney. So I want you to, in as short or as long as you'd like to talk about, give people, first of all, the behind the scenes of how all of that was working. Because I'm sure there was stuff that we have no idea that even happened.
Well, I was exposed to things I've never seen before. The day before the tournament, we had the Rays and the Yankees played. And we had to film a little promotion bit they ended up using in, I believe, the start of their 4-minute like YouTube video on it. They used it in some other things as well. But you sat down, you like walked in this room, and you sat down, and there was this light blasting you. You're sitting in your chair, like kind of like the real show,
a media studio.
Yeah, real media studio. And that was the first time I'd ever sat in anything like that. And that light that was blasting you was so bright that you legitimately couldn't see any other thing behind that light. Like I could barely make out like bodies, like I could barely make out stuff. So it was like sitting there, and then them hitting play is just like, oh my God, what is going on? So I took a lot of pictures, and I have a crazy story of a Gronk jersey that I got when I was down there. But it was my first time that I'd gone on a trip alone like that, and on a work trip like that. And it was the most amount of fun that I've ever had in my life. It was incredible. So it was like, I could talk about it for hours. It was amazing.
Now, I know you got to go on the field, right? I think I saw pictures.
Yeah,
we got
we got passes to go on the field. The game was the 3rd game, so it was getaway day. So they say typically on getaway day, guys don't take BP. So there was a couple people on the field running grounders and stuff. And I believe it was Oswald Peraza, I believe, if I'm not 100% sure. But he was one of the guys that was walking around. There was a lot of Yankee fans in the pit. Understandable, Yankees, Rays. I mean, they travel everywhere. But he walks up to these guys, and he's just the kindest. Like, man, I saw that dude and I was like, I hate the Yankees, but I'll root for that dude in particular for the rest of his career. Because I just a phenomenal head on your shoulder. And then the one thing I love about like baseball, because I recently like I grew up with like no money. So now that I have some, I like buying some like fancy stuff or
Hey,
whatever.
you do
I
you.
love I love seeing like you with your Power Ranger stuff, you know what I mean? But
Adult money.
I love seeing the baseball players like 7 chains, like just like thousands of dollars around their neck. Like,
Thousands.
dude,
Thousands.
you imagine what like some of those like top tier, like Byron Buxton wears a like black steel diamond looking necklace, and every time I see it, I'm like, that's got to be like $4 grand.
Dude, the chain that I saw Jamar Chase wearing during last weekend's game, this would be week 3's game. He probably wears it every week. I was like, that costs more than my life.
Well, you know what's wild is like where like different sports, it makes sense to wear jewelry, or it makes sense to not wear jewelry. Football's wild because you're gonna get grabbed there. Like
they don't care.
So that means that you're so rich that you're just like, I'm gonna wear, my jewelry. If it snaps, it snaps. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's cool.
So was that your first ever time going onto an MLB field?
No.
Okay.
In Cub Scouts growing up in Minneapolis, we had a bit where you'd go to the Twins game, and then after the Twins game was over, they'd set up inflatables, they'd set up fun little activities, and you would play on the Metrodome field until you were tuckered out. And then the best part of it, you slept on the turf. You didn't go home. Yeah, so you set up
super cool.
Yeah, so you set up a little campsite with you, like me and my dad. I think my brother was there, but if I remember right, it was me and my dad. But and then you wake up and you kind of are like, oh my God, I'm still here. Like, I'm still in the Metrodome. What in the world? So that was my first time, but this is my first time as an adult, like getting access like that. So
I was going to say, because I remember, I remember at my old job, a lot of you guys who were longtime listeners and followers of the stream, you guys know I used to do a little bit of Yankees and Mets coverage for work. And the first time I walked out of the tunnel, I grew up a Yankee fan. My dream forever was to cover the Yankees. At 23 years old, I got to cover a Yankee game. I walk out the tunnel and I walk out the dugout steps onto the field, and I'm like, holy shit.
You just crapped your pants.
This is the coolest effing thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So cool. That Metrodome thing, though, that is quite a concept. They only could have done that because that turf was infallible. They could not break that turf.
And they only could have done that because it was, like, indoors. I don't think as many families would have been happy, like, if it was outdoors, like bugs and birds some people don't like, or if there was a storm, you imagine sleeping in Target Field and then boom, rain at like 3 a.m.
So for people who, we probably should have said this first, but it's okay. Nobody cares. The Sunburst Invitational was a MLB The Show tournament hosted by the Tampa Bay, formerly Devil Rays. It was at Full Sail, right? Which is pretty close to the stadium, kind of.
Full Sail University is in Orlando, Florida, and I didn't know when we went out there because like I was so like I gotta tell you, dude, like I was like programmed like the last week and a half leading up to it. Like all I thought about every day was that the tournament. So I didn't realize that like we were staying in St. Pete and then we were driving to Orlando, which is like 2 hours away.
Oh, it was 2 hours. I thought it was closer than that. Okay.
No, so the first night we were there, we stayed in St. Pete, and then it was St. Pete's incredible. I had such a fun time down there. But then like the next day, I had no concept of how long it really took. But yeah, it was like a 2-hour drive to Orlando. I was doing my fantasy draft in the drive to Orlando. And then it was at Full Sail University over there. Yeah.
So it ended up the finals between Zazzy and Bako was the first ever LAN tournament.
Yep. Yeah.
And for people who don't know, that certainly eliminates a lot of connection issues. I thought the tournament was incredibly unique. For the fact that it even existed was incredibly unique. But the fact that you had to use the live series Tampa roster, I thought got a little repetitive, but also very, very interesting because some of those cards are hard to use.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think about with it was it created stories for us. Like a guy might have sucked in the first qualifier, like Jose Siri, for example, because of the live rosters, his stats were adapting throughout the year. And I still thought he had like decent power at the start, but as the year went on, I think he ended around like 86 power.
Oh, he's got pop now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he hit so many home runs and he's so fast. 5-tool player and everything, but it created so many stories. But like the thing I have to really like give, and I said it on the broadcast and I'll continue to say it about anything with the Tampa Bay Rays, that they made a fan out of me for life. I mean, they're like the greatest people that I've ever worked with by a quarter mile. I couldn't, like, the nicest people and the most productive and like understanding people that I've ever worked with was the Tampa Bay Rays. And it was super cool. But yeah, it was, yeah. So we were in Orlando for that.
When you're sitting there broadcasting the games, even when you were announcing and broadcasting games from home and watching these people compete for years, you've been watching people and broadcasting and providing analysis.
Yeah.
All of this is on Legend. And like, you and I can both make World Series and play Legend like a little, like I don't want to play Legend, but these guys are nuts. Does it blow you away how good they are?
Yeah. I brought it up leading into the first game. I kind of like looked at Scuffy and I was like, you imagine having to sit over there and play right now? Like, I was nervous just for the whole experience as one of the broadcasters for it, but I couldn't. Like, I'm trying to play Madden right now, and I'm trying because I think I'm decent at Madden. I think we're going to run. Maybe we won't. People can point and laugh or whatever. But like, you see those like live in-person events they have, and you see the guys sitting right next to him on the couch and like John with them and everything. And then now you get to see it with MLB The Show. I mean, granted, our two guys were the most respectful people ever. Like, they even went in and said, no, we're going to play good, clean baseball. And we're going to be like kind to each other and we're going to be good. So it was cool to have like that perspective. But yeah, no, the whole setup, and I couldn't imagine, like, I barely play Legend as it is right now, but I couldn't imagine having to do that in person with people behind you, like shouting and smoke machines when you hit home runs, dude.
That was
like
the home run sellies were crazy. I loved them.
Yeah, that was like one of the major selling points when we were in the I wasn't involved in the process. Tampa Bay was involved in setting up the stage and stuff and Full Sail. But when the year or the months would go on, because I've known about this whole thing for like such a long time. So it was tough for me to be patient and finally have this moment happen. But yeah, like the production level and everything behind it, like that was a huge selling point. I saw that like months ago. It was like just in a text, like, hey, look what happens when a home run gets hit. I'm like, whoa, like we got a smoke machine. It's cool.
So you and I are both semi used to being on camera. Self-inflicted. We do it to ourselves, of course.
Yeah.
But was it different being on like a
it was completely
set?
different.
Like,
it was.
I don't know if you had to read off a teleprompter, but there were a couple times I've had to do that, and that is an impossible task to do.
Yeah, it's a completely different task, and I think I still like the weirdest moment I've ever had in my life happened leading up to this broadcast. Because you sat down and you had a run of show meeting. You went through what does the day look like, and it was in 15-minute increments. I mean, it was what does your day look like? Yeah, literally, like they set up the calendar like we were babies, and they needed to. Like, this is where you go here. This is what you talk about here. Like, it was cool to have that level of structure because then I could just focus on doing my thing. But the weirdest thing that happened was we sat on the stage and I kept looking at my watch. I was like, okay, we have about an hour and a half till it starts. And then we started rehearsing and I was kind of just talking. And then they said in my ear, they're like, no, act like this is the thing. And then I thought about it and I was like, when I broadcast and you like with broadcasting or whatever, like, that you have to like tap into a different brain. Like you have your like casual relaxing brain, but then if you're going into broadcasting, you have to click into that. And I always
called it like my sit up straight. Like, like you can talk almost the same way, but you got to just like elevate your posture a little bit,
elevate your posture, make it look professional, deepen your voice. And here comes the like like how to carry that. So I know how to tap into that when I start broadcasting, but to tap into it for rehearsing, it was the weirdest. I've never felt that awkward in my entire life, pretending something's happening just so I know what it looks like when the actual thing happens. But yeah, it was incredible.
The hardest thing that I had to get used to, because I was radio trained in college, was having the producer talk to you in your ear.
Oh, I love it. I love
like
that.
it. And the good producers will kind of hit you when you're not speaking, so you don't
Yeah.
stutter over your words. But
Yeah.
sometimes they'll talk while you're talking, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Dude,
like you don't
I
know
was
what,
having,
you know?
I was having so much fun. I was calling the guy Red Leader the whole time. Like I was in Star Wars. I was like Red Leader. Like, dude, it was so fun.
It's cool. So
Yeah.
I'm so happy that was such a huge success. And of course, now we have to talk about the other side of the coin, where it was a tournament that was a huge success with incredible players and incredible broadcasters that was not even acknowledged day of by SDS. And I'm sure there were reasons why, whether you think it's a good reason or not. And when I say you, I mean the larger you, the audience.
Yeah.
Whether you think that's a good reason or not, that's your prerogative. But, you know, you were for years essentially the voice of these tournaments for SDS and MLB The Show. And there was a situation that was, I think, unfortunate probably on all sides. So I want to let you address it however you'd like to address it, because people want to know.
I completely understand the decision, because I acted like a child, but I felt like I deserve to act like that. Like I had sat through tournament, and it's one of the toughest things when you're casting a tournament. And thankfully, like that's what I mentioned multiple times, was like this year's game, the gameplay's, I think, finally a big step up.
Yeah.
Freeze-offs have dropped off considerably. But when there was times where I was casting tournaments and those freeze-offs happen, it's really hard to just be like, oh, you know, and it's not, because I know every game has issues, but like when you looked at the last couple years, not last couple, 3-4 years of esports for MLB The Show, there's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of struggling. And I just thought that I had to talk about it because I worked every single tournament. Like that's one of the big things that helped me get going streaming, was I would watch these qualifiers and be like, nobody's covering these games that are going on. It's very odd. So then I started doing it, and I have I had a great relationship with them, and I still have a great relationship with a lot of people over there. I just, I didn't think it was right to have been sold legitimately a bill of goods. I mean, to be told that you're getting a gold-plated castle and everybody's super excited about how amazing this thing is going to be to work, and have it not only not work, but I mean, utter catastrophe. I mean, the first qualifier was MLB teams, live series teams. So then, you know, you see that and you're like, okay, wow, what is that? We're going to move on. But then it kept happening. And then, you know, I looked at how long I'd been broadcasting MLB The Show esports, and I wanted to, in the most adult way possible, express my concerns and my frustration. That's what I did. And I also messaged MLB The Show on Twitter after the Tampa tournament was done. And I basically said, you know, like, I acknowledge that I have been rude. If you acknowledge that you've also had a really, I mean, a very bad face from the general public on esports. I mean, there's just no other way around it. If we both acknowledge that and both move forward, great things could happen. And who's to say that doesn't happen? But I mean, that's pretty much where it's at. And one of my comments that I made that I still really stand by is that, and one of the main reasons that I was angry, because I've been, like, I told you all the stuff that I worked with before, and had to just kind of be like, oh no, like, here's this again, another freeze off, hooray. Like I didn't have to do that anymore. The gameplay was good. I was very angry at it being PlayStation exclusive.
I think
like,
that stinks.
It's
Sony, I get it, but that stinks.
You are alienating half of your player base that just recently got excited the game was on Xbox. The second thing, it's just like, I had a thought a second ago. Darn it, where did I was thinking about PlayStation. Maybe it'll come back to me, but ultimately, like, there were logistical. Oh, okay, the PlayStation issue. So it's PlayStation tournaments only. You had to have a PS5 to play in the tournament. I know several people that went out of their way to purchase a PS5 specifically so they could play in these tournaments, and it did not work the whole year. Yeah. So I was arguing that it's justifiable that those people with that specific concern could raise that. And I think rightfully try and get your money back or something. Like, if you bought it to play in this tournament and it's not working, that's not fair to the consumer. I know several people that bought PS5s specifically for this that were on Xbox. So when you do that to the consumer, I don't know how you're not allowed to express frustration in that, but I think it's just, I don't know.
It was a tough sell making it PlayStation exclusive, but of course it's a Sony title.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm not defending that or against that. I mean, that's just the fact of what it is. But yes, it alienates, let's just say 50% of the player base, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But
it might be a little bit more. It might be a little bit more considering it's on, or it was on Game Pass last year. Is it on Game Pass this year?
I don't play.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, it's I understand how you see that, and then you see Madden has PC, Xbox, and PS5 competing in their tournaments. I don't understand. Like, you shouldn't be under fire for being upset about that. That you're, because I casted these tournaments, and I casted so many games of like guys that never made it anywhere from the qualifier round. So if you think about it with that perspective, like, there's so many people that might have wanted to compete this year on Xbox that wouldn't have been able to. And I just didn't think that was fair. So,
and ironically, I told you guys who are listening, we are recording this, on September 28th. We're recording this while a championship series tournament is going on right now. I don't even know if I could have entered that, if it's also invitational. I have no idea. But it started at like 1 p.m. on a Thursday.
I don't fault them for what the setup is here. Like, this is clearly like, we just got to finish this off because it's been a disaster this year. I have no fault in how they're running it. And there's great people behind it. The great Robert Flores. I saw Seabrev was on earlier.
Yeah, him and Seabrev for casting. Yeah.
Seabrev is casting.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, and that's a phenomenal player perspective to have, because,
or at least he's doing play-by-play. I don't know if you call that. He's commentating. Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, having Seabrev on the call is such a fantastic thing, because the community all collectively knows, like, dude, Brev is.
Seabrev says it.
Dude, when you talk about MLB The Show, like the hierarchy, I mean, Seabrev is near the top. Like, everybody knows who he is. Everybody respects who he is. And he's very well spoken. So you couple all that together, and that's a fantastic caster right there. And then you got Robert Flores, which is great.
He's amazing. So yeah, I hope, we all hope that esports improves from here. I hope this is kind of like September call-ups with their tournaments. Like, you hope by the end of the season, someone kind of figures it out and they get some momentum going into next year. I think they will. I hope so.
I think the recent people that I spoke to before got axed, all seem very passionate, all seem, very energetic and ready to go. That's the whole thing, is that I don't doubt that there's great people working behind this, because I've talked to them. If I didn't think they were great people, I wouldn't call them that. And I had so many fantastic conversations, but the one, and I think the perspective that needs to be had from SDS side is, for a time, Leah Jackson was running esports, and I got to tell you, one of my favorite people I've ever worked for was very eloquently spoken, laid things out very, very well, was directive, and stood her ground if something that she heard she didn't like. And then she would rebuttal you in a very respectful tone and a respectful way. And then the first time that happened, I was like, okay, yeah, I trust whatever she says. Like, that's just when you find out, like, going through life, if you meet someone and you say, okay, they do have a backbone, like, that's a cool person that I can like trust and talk to. That was Leah. And during the tournaments, she was in my chat the whole time, updating me the whole time. And then when the tournament was over, and I would go back because I'm like on a notebook writing, okay, I got to get that clip. I got to get that clip. I got to get that clip. I'll never forget how happy I felt after the first game. There were labeled clips of everything, player names, what happened by Leah Jackson, by Leah Jackson, by Leah Jackson. And I saw that level of support and I was like, we're going to be fine. Yeah. And then she left and then I'll go back to SDS there in a second, but I go to Tampa. It's the same thing. Yuki, it might have been him most of the time, might have been somebody else, went through and labeled every single clip, said this is specifically what happened. Tampa Bay gave the greatest level of support that I've ever been given from any job anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like the people at Full Sail in Tampa, I told them, like, I will on a whim fly over if you need me. Like they've won me over for my life. So there's that. So Tampa and Leah Jackson did that. My biggest frustration I had was that this year I didn't have that. And the year before, I didn't have that. And it's the flagship company making the game. So as long as like that perspective can be had on this is how I was treated this way, this is how I was treated this way, I think it's right that frustrations are for how it's treated this way, you know?
And this is good. Everyone bias alert because I'm a baseball person, but MLB The Show and its player base deserve to have more than competent esports because, in my opinion, my biased opinion, it is so gosh dang hard to be that good at MLB The Show. And Madden, like competitive Madden, you have to have the knowledge of schemes and defenses, but I don't want to sound like an asshole, but like there is a lot less trigger input and there's a lot less like thinking on, like you have to react in MLB The Show. You have to have the fastest hand-eye coordination of any human being out there. Like, it's all out of sports games. It might be the hardest to be this good at. Like Call of Duty has similar type of things, Halo maybe, but like this is different.
But what you're saying should equate something I've been advocating for a long time. A significant increase in the prize pool. I mean, what in the Sam Hill are we doing? Like Madden just posted that they're having $1.7 million in a prize pool this year. I'm not sitting here telling you that MLB should on a whim go to $1.7 million, but you need to incentivize the players and you need to win them over because of what they've gone through the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, like the prize pool's been going up for MLB, but I think at minimum, you should be looking at the collective year total being around 400 or 500K. You should, if you're a Major League Baseball game backed by Major League Baseball
and Sony,
and run by Sony, San Diego Studios, who is backed by Sony. The fact that you don't have a higher prize pool is absolutely mind-boggling. Like, how are you going to incentivize people to play in these tournaments if you're not? That's another thing that I've been trying to argue for is a bigger prize pool. But yeah,
it's comparing apples to oranges because the Rays did this on their own volition. But what was the Rays prize pool?
Well, okay, so this is what I said. The Rays prize pool is $10,000.
But they put that together on their own.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. $10,000 prize pool. And you get flown out to a different state to play in an in-person tournament. And this is the thing that one of the really big things that I'm like, I'll fly to Tampa whenever they need me. They didn't just fly us out for the tournament. They brought us to a Rays and Yankees game and gave us field access. They treated us like we were gods. Obviously, like not that we were, but that like every door was open for you. Do you need a water? Can I get you anything? Like that kind of hospitality.
They treat you like talent.
Was given 24/7. I mean, the run of the day each time, like we went to a fantastic coffee spot to game plan for the tournament before the Rays and Yankees game. And I got this coffee that they put a shot of bourbon in it.
Ooh.
They poured the black coffee and then they dumped ice cream on top of it. And they said,
Oh.
here you go.
This man was getting bougie out in St. Pete.
And when I got that in my hand, I was like, man, we're doing okay. Like that, like that's how Tampa treated us. It was amazing.
What was it like working with the legendary Mr. Scuffy? Because he was the first ever guest of the show, the podcast. The first ever guest. I had like 2 Twitter followers, and he was like, yeah, come on. He's the man.
The thing that I'm so grateful for in Scuffy is that I am nowhere near as seasoned in the community as he is. So to have someone of that pedigree to work with and have that knowledge of, and to be as compassionate and kind as he is too, because like I remember leading up to the tournament, I was up until 2-3 in the morning the day before, writing notes, just going as fast as I could, trying to nail every single edge. So I was trying to think of everything. Yeah. And Scuffy thought of something I didn't think about. And when I heard him say it, I was like, that is someone that should be casting this tournament. He said that he wanted to like lead it off by acknowledging the people that have gotten us to this point. Like the Rebels, the Seabrevs, Scuffy's not here, so he's gonna be upset that I'm forgetting all the old heads' names. But like he brought up all those names, and then it's just like, that's someone who clearly cares about this game.
Yes.
That he came in and his homework, one of his main homeworks was that he wanted to acknowledge those from the past that got us to where we are. And I think that's exactly why the Rays reached out to them, because they said, that's a man of character. You know what I mean? So he's a great dude.
I mean, people like Rebel are competing in this tournament today that's going on, but like, imagine if Rebel and players of his, I hate calling it generation because they're not old people, but like people of that generation had this level of commitment
like
to
esports is a little different. Yeah, like
esports,
you kind of talk in like 4 to 5 year windows.
Yeah,
it feels like, because there's not a lot of esports dudes that are doing it for 15, 20 years. A lot of people are 3, 4, 5 years and they peace usually. But
yeah, so the other thing I want to talk about the Sunburst, I want to shout out whoever the Twitch mod was, because I don't know if you guys could see the chat, but if you listen to this podcast and you are in that chat being a fool, please stop listening to this podcast, because you are not the people we want in this community.
Well, that's the one thing about the MLB communities. I just don't understand why the chat is so toxic.
I think it's and this is me again speaking out of my ass because I'm not really part of the competitive community, but I feel like ultra competitive communities just get toxic, and I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you, I've been working as a teacher for 3 years. Kids today, they cuss a lot more than I used to cuss when I was their age. The other thing I'll tell you, and this is something we're trying to battle in education, is that like I think about this a lot, like how much has it affected kids growing up that they've had TikTok in their hand from 4 years old? Like, how has it affected kids to be exposed to the entire world really, really early when really you young. Don't understand who you are yet?
Yeah.
Like, you're how old?
I'm 30, almost 31.
Okay. 30, 31. And you feel like you're in the final model of your brain. Like you finally are like, you're ready to go.
What's wild is that these kids we're talking about of whatever age, let's say like 12 to 16, they know more about the world than I do because of how long they've had the internet.
Yeah.
And this sounds like old men yelling at clouds, but it's reality.
But if you're looking from a pure psychology or like mental analysis standpoint, that has to play into how kids today act, because they've been exposed. Like, I didn't get my first phone until 17, and it was one of those like the slide phone where you like if you ate too much Taco Bell, you're hitting 4 buttons every time you try and type. Like, that's what I had. And then like I remember like I grew up reading the newspaper, and then that's just like the news and like media and how the world has evolved in such a quick period of time. Like you think about baseball too. Like I remember growing up, if a dude was throwing 91 miles an hour as his fastball level point as a starter, that guy's a stud. Like look at Look at him. He's throwing over 89.
Mm-hmm.
Now every starter's throwing 94. Like everything's evolving so fast. It's crazy.
And the thing, like, this is not a reflection of Bako or Zazzy, but each of them had their fervent supporters in the chat.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like, go Bako, go Zazzy. It was like, fuck you, Bako, Zazzy suck. Like, it was not even nice. Like, we can prop each other up without beating other people down. I think people need to learn that.
Well, I think it's a human thing, and it happened to me recently because I've gone through a lot of, really frustrating and like difficult things to like process. And, for a long time, as any human should, your reaction to that stress and that frustration is to meet it with like anger and hate and be upset. That's a natural human thing that all those guys are feeling, is that if they're being toxic in that chat, that's just where their brain is at, and that's how they want to act at that time. But at some point when you grow up as a man and you kind of realize, like, I want to choose to be good, and I want to choose to do good things. I want to choose to be a positive person out there. They just haven't gotten to that mental spot yet. So I think that's like, that chat's going to continue, but maybe, you keep having these conversations, people hear it, maybe people change, and who knows. But yeah.
I think so much of it's probably just attention seeking too.
It's 100% attention seeking behavior.
As a preteen or teen, adolescent, whatever, young adult, that is the nature of it, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But again, we can just be nice about it. We can seek attention in other ways.
Well, it's like, I have students that I found out about my stream, and the first thing they try and comment is like, F you, teacher, because like, how cool would it be to type in a chat to your teacher and say F you, So you have those students, but then I have one of my students from when I was student teaching, that she'll pop up feels like every 4 or 5 months or whatever, for like 2 minutes on a Sunday. And just check in with like how school is going and everything. She was one of my like star students. Like, she did everything in flying colors every time. So I was always really nice to her, because like, you're grateful for a student who gives you the best. And so you have like those two perspectives, and they're both young kids. You just hope more young kids act like my former student,
So you guys didn't see the chat live, right? Because it's not like you were taking questions. That would have been such a distraction. So how did you find out afterwards that it was crazy?
Well, I had I'll tell you the dumbest thing I ever did. I had my phone on my desk facing up, so not with the cover facing up, through the first game, and I was overstimulated because that thing was blowing up.
A lot going on.
And I was casting, and I was like, I gotta turn that down. But yeah, we heard the chat was bad. Like, somebody made a fleeting comment around game 2, like, just kind of funny. But dude, we were so focused on what we were doing.
Just
like,
locked. Yeah.
We like, you saw it in everybody when it was done. Like, everybody was happily exhausted. Everyone was smiling, but they were also keeled over, sitting down, or exhausted. Like, everybody there dumped their heart and soul into it. And I think ultimately that's one of the things I talk about at school, is like junk behavior. Like, that chat doesn't matter. Everybody who was here for that tournament matters. Like, they're just dumb kids. You know what I mean? Like, we're here casting the first tournament. I don't care if little Timmy is upset with something I said. You know what I mean?
All those Timmys.
Yeah.
So shout out, first of all, to Bako for making it as far as he did. And even losing the last 2 games of that 3-game set, he played his ass off. And
he was super, like, I couldn't imagine keeping a level head after losing. Like, and he kept a level head. He was great. Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
But for you, because you were there watching intently every pitch, Zazzy in game 1 didn't look like Zazzy. And then it's like, flip the switch, woke up. What was that like to watch him just completely shift?
Well, it was something that I talked about in the pre-show, and I kind of acknowledged, like, you're not going to see the true character of these guys until somebody hits a big home run, or somebody makes a big error, or is doing well pitching. Like, there needed to be something to happen to let them tap into that element, because I had to imagine it was an incredibly overwhelming feeling to be playing MLB The Show for the first time in person. And you're not playing MLB The Show like just boring in person. You're playing on like a makeshift. You're sitting on top of a makeshift baseball field on a platform. You're sitting in a chair directly across the dude you're playing. And every time the other dude hits a home run, a smoke machine goes off, like double middle fingers
and they've
to
got
you.
those thunder sticks. They're going
then,
nuts.
And then for the theatrical value, we talked about like don't skip the home runs. So then you had to sit there and watch Jose's series perfect again.
And not to mention, they were able to hear you and Scuffy too.
Yeah, and we got after him a little bit. Like, we had some fun with it.
Yeah,
so
they could hear this asshole, and Zazzy's like, yeah, Thuuuuney, I know, it was a bad pitch. Like, they can hear everything you guys are saying.
I can't remember the exact interaction, but at some point in, like, game 2, Zazzy stood up and, like, shouted something to me jokingly, and I was like, oh, we're having a good time.
I'm glad everyone, a very serious scenario, there's money on the line, it's uber competitive, but I'm glad there was fun to be had.
Yeah. There was fun, there was respect, there was care in the project. It was just like with Tampa, and this is, I brought it up in the broadcast, but when I was first approached about this, the first meeting I had, it was like, we're gonna use the Rays roster, we're gonna play the Trop. I told them, and this is, I think, the best testament to my relationship with SDS. I told them in that Zoom meeting, I didn't say this, but I basically said, what the fuck are you thinking about?
The Trop
running
is
5
a
series
cavern.
players of the Trop. I basically said that to them. So you think about my relationship with SDS and how they handle comments, I guess. And then the Tampa Bay Rays, with love and care and respectfully, like Leah Jackson was, just kind of took my hand and said, respectfully, no, listen, hear us out. We know what we're doing. And then when you talk about a backbone, I was like, that's somebody who knows what they're doing. Cool, man. I'll back off and I'll do whatever we're believing in. And it produced like real baseball. We got bunting involved. We got sacrifice hits involved. We got sack flies. Like, we got hit and runs. We got actual baseball plays, and then we got actual baseball scores. It was like 8-3, 7-4, 5-1.
I liked everyone was using their benches and going to the bullpen and
using
you were
the
really
entire roster.
Yeah,
like, you had to have a game plan with every single player on the team, and then you had to be exposed to different things too. Like, Zazzy had a game in his qualifiers where Zach Eflin got knocked out in the first 2/3 of the first inning. So then I brought it up in the broadcast, like, this is a very good thing for Zazzy to go through, because now he's going to know what it feels like to manage a bullpen game with his team, because that might happen when he if at the time, if he goes to Tampa. But it exposed, I think, these players to a level of managing their team that they've probably never felt playing in a tournament for this. Because in Diamond Dynasty, it's pretty much set and forget who you get, except for like platoon guys. But that platoon dude's still going to get 4 at-bats that game. Like, you know who you're using.
And like, I'm as pro God Squad card as they come. I think fun 99s are fun. But yes, in a true comp setting like you're talking about, it's nice to not just like have all 125 attributes across the board.
It was nice to, it sounds weird to say this, but it was nice to see certain balls not just be a home run every single time. Because I think one of the things I'm sure was in their vision was that when the home runs happened, they hit different, because they weren't happening. There wasn't 20 home runs a game. There was 3, and they were all pivotal. It's like, oh my gosh, a 3-run shot. How are you going to surmount 3 runs?
There were very few no touchy flukies. Like, you had to barrel the ball.
You had to perfect a ball to center, and it would go to a prison sometimes, and Siri would catch it. Like, not every hit was a guaranteed home run. Like, the thing that I observed the most was the only time you could get not junk contact, you had to get like a 13, 14 PCI contact still, right? Maybe a 12. But the only 2 zones that seemed to consistently allow like ship it type home runs was right center and then down the left field line of the Trop.
Well, down the left field line makes sense.
If you hit it to those 2 areas, it seemed like the game made those auto home runs. If you hit it anywhere past or anywhere to the right, it was a fight. I mean, there were so many doubles down the right field line that at Laughing Mountain would have been a 440-foot home run to right field. You know what I mean?
And a happy accident. It was a perfect confluence of like team willing to do this and a Rays roster that isn't shit.
And we had to dodge a significant bullet in the near end of it with
yes.
the, you know, the you shall not be named thing.
It was a no talk about situation.
Well, and this is, you know, one I didn't want to say it to Tampa because like I am so grateful for it, but it caused me the most stress of anything was that telling my brain under no circumstance can you mistakenly mention a name that you just were talking about non-stop.
Yes, like he does not exist.
For the first basically 2 qualifiers. Like he was the guy that was getting 5 hits every game, so I said his name all the time. So you go to Tampa and I was like, I have to do whatever I can to eliminate those 2 words out of my brain. And it was so hard. I even wrote on my paper in big bold lines, I said, remember Voldemort. And I underlined it 30 times.
It's helpful that like their reserve shortstop was not a 63 overall piece of shit. It was like a real player. So like, you're not like, oh, imagine if they still had him.
Well, and Zazzy will attest to it. My favorite player and moment that we had the whole run was Francisco Mejia was briefly on the roster as a catcher.
This is a cool story.
And for some reason, Zazzy turned him into like Barry Bonds, dude. Like this dude, Mejia's got less than 41 power, and Zazzy was hitting 430-foot home runs with him in the Trop. How do you do that? You know what I mean?
And then did he get waived or designated for assignment? And so he ends up using, like Betancourt and Pinto in the championship game.
Then he gets hits with Pinto. So it's like, there was a storyline of like, here's Zazzy being phenomenal with using the little that, not the little that he has, it's like sounds belittling. Like we're not making fun of the major leaguers, but it's a video game. Our game's based on numbers, so that's just what it is.
Yeah.
But he was so good with the backup crappy rated players. And I think that that's a really big reason why he won, because you had to be good with everybody, because you didn't have like you'd have a certain guy come up that'd be a home run hitter, and then you wouldn't see that kind of potential for like 3 at-bats. You know what I mean?
So because this went so well, obviously not every state has a team.
Yeah.
But if you could regionally put together a 30 Major League Baseball teams MLB The Show tournament, and you can only enter the region you're in, and then you bring all 30 winners together.
The NFL used to do that with Madden.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that we could slowly be approaching something, because I obviously can't mention anything, but there's been more discussions from other people.
I hope so.
I'm not saying like who the people are. I've heard people talk about being optimistic about next year and things possibly happening. So, you know, if that's cool, if it happens, it's cool. If it doesn't happen, then man, this was the coolest little cool thing that ever happened. And we'll hope that SDS can do something. But, you know,
I hope MLB The Show is involved in whatever these conversations become, because it's their game. They should be involved in some way.
Yeah. And that's a whole other, I'm not going to talk about that.
I know, but I know because we want you involved too, very much so.
Well, that's the thing, is like, I sent a DM on Twitter, and I was like fully acknowledging that I've been an a-hole on certain comments. And I also was like, if you acknowledge that the community has had, I mean, what a horrible time to be an esports player the last 3-4 years, for being quite honest. You know, I'm playing in a Madden tournament right now, or I was on Battlefy. You had admin responded to you right away. You had people watching my stream so that they could go back without me asking and put the correct score into Battlefy. So my point differential lined up. Like, you see all these other entities and the level of care and support they have. It's like, we got to get up to that level. You know what I mean?
Do you, I don't know if a lot of people remember this, and I don't know exactly when it was, but let's just say when we were youngins, Madden had a tournament show on ESPN.
They had,
This was it was
they went in a
esports
big truck with John
yes,
Madden.
and they played the championship game in Times Square.
God, remember that?
This was esports before it was esports. Like, this was just like you'd get 2 controllers, hook them up to the PlayStation 2 and play the game.
Yeah.
But like, that happened 20 years ago. Let's do something cool like that now. Let's get an MLB The Show bus. Let's go have fun.
Let's get Coach out there.
Yeah, and let's get. I don't know. I don't know. I want the best for this community in everything.
Yeah.
Even prior to me forcing my way into speaking into a microphone in this community, I was part of this community by loving this game. And I think the thing that, whether the game treats us well, treats us poorly, he's playing great, playing not, we all love baseball. We all love the game. We all want the best for it. And I think that's why we get vocal. And like you said, maybe you don't think you handled the situation perfectly appropriately, but you are passionate about it. And ultimately, that should be the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm going to answer your comment. I just got this new watch. I bought a little early birthday present for myself in the mail.
Very nice.
I had to get this adjusted, dude. This thing is like all the way down my arm, man. Holy cow. I'm going to be like that guy in the Matrix with like 30 watches on his hand. Yeah, no, I mean, the hope is that, the hope is that people let bygones be bygones and move forward. And I think that, there's so much potential because I mentioned it, like, because of the way you have to be quick hand-eye coordination wise, and because of how difficult the game is in a high level. I mean, it should be on a grand stage. It should have a high prize pool and it should be amazing. And you just have to hope and pray that other people feel that way and that those people are working on it, and then they can do it, and then we'll be good.
Because there are, again, I know we all have things to say about like maybe some content shortcomings this year or in the past, server stability and gameplay, and like all valid concerns that we should voice respectfully. But I think we forget sometimes that there are people at SDS who come up with pretty cool ideas, like superfractoring and there are smart people there who can get stuff done.
No, there are, and I will say this to my time working with SDS. I mean, there are some very tremendous people that work on that game and work in that studio, and some very, very kind people and some like forward-thinking people. And yeah, you mentioned, unique ideas. I mean, it's one of the coolest things I love about MLB The Show is the paralleling system, that you're rewarded in the video game for being a nerd and using a card a lot. And then you're given statistical upgrades on it, which is cool. Cause I mean, you remember back in the day with prestiging, dude, when you had a specific mission that said hit 40 home runs for me, and the dude you're playing dashboards your home run.
Oh, happened way too much.
My God.
Yes.
Dude, that drove me insane.
Yes. Paralleling leveled the playing field in that we're all fighting for the same things, but in a fun way. And I'm just using that example because I happen to be staring at my lineup screen right now. It's the first thing that came to head, but like, there are people who have good ideas, and I would just like us all to continue to make improvements. Like, let's stop taking steps back. Let's all continue to push forward.
Well, I think it's like, it's something that I tell my students a lot, is that, you can stand on your feet or you can start walking. And like, you can stay where you are because it's working. And if you're having a tough time, or if you're being weird or whatever, but you're being safe and you're, being taken care of or whatever, you can keep your feet there. But if you want to start like really thinking and really doing, you can start walking and do that. Like, so like, they can choose to look at the last 3-4 years and stand on their feet and try to kind of pivot and do whatever they can to makeshift that mold, or they could ball it up, throw in the trash, and really start making some wild stuff happen. And I hope they do.
Overall, it seemed like a pivot year. I think pivot's a great word to use. Sets and seasons is a pivot. The move away and then back to Battlefy was a pivot in the pivot. I think there's a lot of unrest because, unfortunately, some of their pivots did not hit the way they hoped, and it's all just compounded on itself. And you can say maybe that's SDS's fault. Maybe it's just unfortunate timing, unfortunate luck, whatever. But nothing is ever right the first time you try something.
Yeah.
So I am so hopeful that it all gets figured out.
And that's one of the main reasons why I've been very vocal because I'm a very vocal, passionate dude. I have been like punched in the face so much that I don't care anymore. So I just say what I think. And boy, I completely forgot what our point was. Sorry. We were talking about my students have been yelling at me all day. My brain's fried.
Well, I would say that I think that's why people gravitate towards your stream and your casts and just your personality, is because they appreciate that you say what you're feeling.
Well,
there's like a genuineness to it.
Well, it's like you have to be an adult. Like you can't just say, like, "Oh, this bleeping sucks." Like that's not professional. But yeah, I mean, I've been through so many things in my life that I am at a point now where I just like I feel like I've been there and done a lot of things, so I can talk about things because I feel like I see stuff. And I'm really passionate because I'm very grateful for it. I mean, I was flown out to Tampa to broadcast the first Major League or MLB The Show tournament in person ever. I mean, that's an opportunity that nobody except for the people that were involved will ever get to have. There's never going to be another first.
Yeah.
So I'm so energetic and passionate because I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had, and I want to keep having those opportunities, you know?
So with casting, kind of circling back a little bit before we come to a wrap here, is it possible for you to like look into doing that level of Madden casting? Because I know you're very passionate about football and Madden.
I was really, it's so wild, man, because I feel like, and you're older than I am, but the older you get, you start to, you know, kind of feel what your body needs. And when I came back from Tampa, I was in full go mode. Like, I'm going to go talk to these agents. I'm going to go try and put my name out there as much as I can. And then I like the third or fourth day back, I was like, dude, I need to chill out for a bit. Like I mean, I think I dumped about 8 months of my life into that. Like I gave my heart and soul to that.
That was a big project.
I need time to put the open sign down, put it on close. Like I've been taking time off from streaming and it's felt so amazing. Like this weekend, usually on weekends, I press myself to go live, but I'm going to go for a nice walk. I'm going to go out to, you know, a coffee joint on Saturday, like just kick it a little bit. So yeah, it's like now that I've had that relaxing time, obviously I want to reach out to as many people as possible because I love broadcasting. I want to do it for the rest of the way, you know?
I can relate to that in my own way. This was the first week, not the week you're listening to this, again, the week we're recording this, that I did not put out Monday through Friday YouTube content since like early June.
Yeah.
And it felt so nice to like not have to record and edit 2 more videos and not have to. It just felt restful.
But the toughest thing with that, and I think that just takes time, is being okay with that rest.
Oh, I was not okay with it at first. Let me tell you.
See, but that's the whole problem, is that you have to get to a place in your head where you can tell yourself, like, it's okay that I'm sitting here watching Power Rangers. You know what I mean? It's okay that I'm just relaxing. Like, we're so conditioned to work 24/7 and put out things 24/7. Like, you need to take time to just sit down,
there's such
relax.
The mentality of a content creator, whether big, small, new, old, doesn't matter, it should be examined, because like I skip a Wednesday upload for the first time since May. And I'm like, oh my God, is my channel going to stop getting in the algorithm? Am I going to stop growing? Like, are they going to think I'm gone? What's going to happen here? We're all like neurotic and weird.
Yeah, and then you're streaming and you're staring at your viewer number the whole time, and then it goes down by 7. You're like, okay, welcome to the show. Like,
I love starting out every stream like, hey, everybody, so glad you guys are here. There's like 3 people there. It's like, you all know who you are.
They all just drunkenly rolled in. They're like, oh, here we go, another stream.
They're like, you're the only person streaming MLB The Show right now. Of course we're here. That's it's just all the work that we do is cool to just get a little bit of recognition from time to time, whether that's from fans or SDS or other games or Tampa Bay or whatever.
I had one of my viewers buy me a beer in Seattle. Is pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, his name is Why Should I Work is his Twitch.
Shout out.
But yeah, he I think he texted like because I said I was going to Seattle. I think he texted like, "Hey, if you're there, see." And anytime because you get like 30 of those, you're like, okay, I'm sure they're gonna do that. Like, yeah, okay. But we were at the MLB draft, and I was walking down to go get a beer, and he like walked up to me, and we talked, and he offered to buy me a beer. And it was super cool.
That is cool. That's
yeah.
Cool. That's like community in the real world.
Yeah, but that's like that's such a cool thing. Like I've never talked to that dude in my life. Like he's watched my streams and stuff, but like that person thought highly of me to a point to seek me out of a crowd, talk to me, and offer to buy me a beer. Like that's really cool. Yeah. You got to be doing something right if somebody's saying that. You know what I mean?
Sometimes some people just like they appreciate the fact that you acknowledge them. Maybe they go through a whole day and you're the first person who said something nice to them and you're a streamer. That's their whole world.
Well, I mean, that's my whole attitude. I always adopted to streaming was, when you first start out and you're getting 0 to 5 viewers and then you're going 5 to 10, you're up to 20 or whatever. There's a lot of things you have to learn to adapt with because the environment of your stream changes depending on how many people are in there.
Yes.
And I always, in the back of my mind, was like, at bare minimum, if I don't know what to say at that time, other people are talking to me. I can just read what they're saying. So I had that attitude the whole way, is that I don't care how many viewers or like how high the views are. Cause like I had days with drops and stuff where I was at like 3,000-4,000. I was still able to read like every single comment, or at least most of the comments ignore the junk content or the comments at the times. But yeah, I think every streamer should do that. Like there are so many forms of media out there. To have a person choose to spend their quality leisure time watching you play a video game.
And it's not like you were hired to stream. You chose to do it yourself.
You chose to go live during that time. That person chose to join your stream. That's been my attitude the whole time. Like, thank you so much. Like, why are you here? We'll talk the whole time. Like, so that's always been the attitude I've had with it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We are going to wrap up with this last little question and answer back and forth here. The biggest Minnesota sports fan on earth, self-declared. I just called him that.
I'm a diehard, huge Twins and Vikings fan. I'm a fair weather Timberwolves fan, and I love the Wild, but they're the only NHL thing I follow. I don't know any other player on any team. I just follow the Wild. I listen to them on the radio all the time because we have K-Fan here. So K-Fan has great Wild radio shows. So every week I'll hear, oh, they're doing well, or oh, they're struggling a little bit. But Twins and Vikings are my main two.
So my questions are, and you can choose to answer them whichever order you want. Number one, this episode is coming out October 10th. What will be the status of the Twins on the 10th? And then secondly who will be the Vikings quarterback in the second half of this season? Kirk Cousins or somebody else?
I'll answer the Kirk one right away. They should trade him to the Jets. They should bottom out for Caleb Williams because they've never done that in my lifetime, and they're not going to do it. They're going to end up like 8-9, maybe 9-8, win the division still somehow. It's possible. I doubt it, but they might try their best to hold on to what they have, but they should trade Cousins away, get some capital because
I would agree.
The team is legitimately a dumpster fire.
If they somehow start 0-4, you have to move him.
We have so many amazing players in our team and so many holes everywhere. I mean, I just don't think it's worth it to keep going because you look at the Twins and they have depth everywhere.
They do have a lot of depth.
They have, if they are presented with a scenario, they have a man for that scenario. It might not always be the best, but they have, like, dude, Willie Castro this year.
I was just going to say his name.
Incredible.
They were able to withstand their $700 million man, Carlos Correa, not having a good season, and they're basically fine.
Well, okay,
that's a bigger, different picture, but like
I'm always going to go to bat for Correa because he's a
good player. I don't dislike him.
Yeah, no. It's just like he's into a lot of double plays this year. I can't imagine it happens again next year. Buxton's tough because he's injured, but October 10th.
That'd
be the ALDS.
They'd be after the wild card round. Yeah.
I have been very vocal in this, and a lot of people are prepared to get freezing cold takes going. So I might as well do it on a podcast. But
clip it.
Yeah. I am a diehard Minnesota Twins fan, but I also have a brain and I'm reasonable. The Atlanta Braves are the best team in baseball.
By a mile.
They're going to win the World Series. It's a clear-cut, absolute guarantee. Nobody will beat the Atlanta Braves this year. The American League is wide open. So in my mind, I think the AL pennant is the World Series this year. And I think there's a world where the Twins could go to the ALCS. If you look at the other teams and you look at other Twins have played against them, there's no reason to instantly bring up their past and have that just be a reason for them to not win. I think that they have the pitching. I think that they got Chris Paddock coming back from being gone for 2 years, and he's throwing 99 now.
Which he never did.
And they got Louis Varland, who they converted from a starter to a reliever. Their bullpen's a completely different look than it used to be. Brock Stewart's just come back from injury. He's throwing about 100. And then I think you couple that with a solid roster. It seems like Royce Lewis will be healthy for the wild card round. I hope so. I think Correa is going to be healthy. I think they just iced him to end the season because he's, got that plantar fasciitis. I can't remember exactly how to say it, but
I think that was right.
I think that they will be in the ALCS, and that's my feelings. And if I'm wrong, people can feel free to tweet me as much as they want to.
Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray, when pitching as well as they're pitching, as a 1-2 is right up there in the American League.
Yeah, the real problem is the significant regression of Joe Ryan. And the whole thing behind it is like Bailey Ober, they mentioned the broadcast is successful because he's pitching from a larger angle. So his velocity is deceptive because it's coming in at a different angle. Joe Ryan was similar to that in that he had a unique arm slot and delivery. And I don't know if the league understands that now or if he's not throwing from that slot, but he's been getting lit up. So I hope
I would imagine your three starter in the playoffs as a 3-starter should be Kenta, just because he
has veteran experience
and he won't get shaky.
Yeah.
And you only need 4 innings from your playoff starter.
It seems like they're planning on Kenta being a bullpen guy, but I really think that they love Bailey Ober. I think that they love the giant mountain goat kind of man that he is. And he's a weird, on a cold night in October, that might be a good guy to have, just a big ox on the mound. You know what I mean? So they like Bailey Ober. Sonny Gray and Pablo Lopez are obviously the horses. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Listen, I have to get one Yankees jab in. The fact that the Yankees are not in the postseason to eliminate you is already a plus. So you're already shooting up.
We'll see. I'm weird in that I want to play the Yankees in the playoffs.
I know,
because
I
want that to finally happen.
I know.
I can't stand the fans that are like, I hope we don't see them. What do you mean? You're the playoffs. Yeah. Everybody's going for everybody's throat.
Go beat their brains in.
Dude, everybody's tuned up. It's the playoffs. What do you mean you don't want to face somebody? Everybody's good.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, guys listening on October 10th, it's either go Twins or Twins, you almost had it.
Boy,
so
how cool am I going to look if I'm right here,
or how stupid will this last 10 minutes have been? But, either way, it's content. Go for it.
No, I was just, the last thing I was to say was they've never played on my birthday in my entire life, and I've been so sad about that. My birthday's on October 8th this year. Well, it's October 8th every year, but based on the schedule that Bob Nightingale tweeted out,
take it with a grain of salt. Then
with a grain of salt, it looks like October 8th would be game 1 of the ALDS. And if I finally get that for my birthday, I think that I could check a lot of boxes off. It sounds
Would
dumb.
they be able to? Would they be? They don't host it.
No, they'd be
right?
on the road.
Okay.
So I would watch it from my home or whatever, or go to a bar or be with buddies or whatever. But
Yeah.
it sounds dumb, but that's like something that I want. But I've been wanting that since I was a kid. Your baseball team playing on your birthday in the playoffs would be pretty cool.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
There you go.
All right. So Thuuuuney, where can everybody find you, follow you, subscribe to you, give you money? Where can they do all this stuff?
I would tell them to go to my YouTube, but I rarely post over there. Maybe we'll get to posting soon again. I don't know, but mostly on Twitch. Thuuuuney with 4U's. This content is for you. One of my mods said that, and I was like, that's a phenomenal idea, mod.
That's a marketing manager.
This
right
content
there.
is for you. Come on, dude.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I have a hat coming out soon.
Ooh.
That's gonna have.
Go buy the merch.
It's gonna be cool. Got a lot of fun stuff playing with Showzone, but yeah, it's Thuuuuney on Twitch, Thuuuuney on Twitter, it's Thuuuuney everywhere, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man.
This is great. Anytime you can come on. Let's not do 2 years in between appearances again. Let's
Sounds
get you
good.
on again soon.
Yeah.
And everybody, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Sometimes it's nice just to talk about like stuff that's not necessarily on the field in the game, just to kind of spitball a little bit. So
yeah,
I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys don't get mad at me for maybe skipping another week of content at some point to take a break. But I love you guys. I love you guys for listening. Love you guys for subscribing. And I will I'll catch you next time.